Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema, directors, actors, genres, or franchises. It doesn't matter. It's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Becky.
And I'm Randy.
And this month we're talking about foreign films, and this week we're talking about...
Stalker.
That's right, Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker, 1979, 162 minutes long, and one of Randy's favorite movies?
It was before I read the book and then rewatched the movie, and now I'm not so sure.
Book's better?
It's different. I don't want to say it's better.
Okay.
But the three types of media that are all revolved around, the same general idea here, the book, Roadside Picnic, the movie, Stalker, and the video games, Stalker.
Shadow over Chernobyl.
Well, yeah, that's the first one. Are all kind of based around the same ideas and use similar themes, but they're not the same really almost at all.
Really? I was always under the assumption that the movie was like the definitive version of this kind of stuff. It's probably just because I'm a film person and the film
and you
kind of
haven't
large.
read the book or played the games.
Well, lots of things. But...
real quick though, this movie is definitely a movie buff's movie. If you really enjoy movies, I think you'll dig this. A casual watcher, I'm not so sure.
Maybe. I really like this movie. This is probably my fourth time seeing the film in its entirety. This is what, your second, third?
Second time.
But this is Becky's first time seeing Stalker.
It is.
Did you like it?
That was my rating in the car. I'm kind of sticking with it. It was a little confusing.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
It's really pretty though.
It is a gorgeous movie.
It is. I will attest to that.
Really pretty.
Yeah,
and it was not the 2 hours that Dean promised.
Yeah.
He's like super simple watch.
I think it's because the movie is part of that like slow cinema thing where it's very long takes and it's very drawn out. I was like, oh yeah, there's about 2 hours worth of shit happening in this, but it's like a fucking 3 hour movie.
240.
242.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of movie.
That's a lot of movie.
That's a lot. Not the longest we've ever done. Because we did Once Upon a Time in America. That's a 4+ hour movie.
Oh,
that's a very long movie.
But Stalker. For those who want to know what the fuck Stalker's about, I have it written here.
Oh boy.
I'm about to bust out the Rod Serling voice because it's a Twilight Zone episode.
Yes, correct.
But he can't read his own writing.
I'm trying my best, goddammit.
This is not my writing.
You actually write in, like, Cyrillic. It's fucking unreadable.
It's pretty bad.
You literally write with backwards R's.
No, I don't.
They look backwards to me.
Everything looks backwards to you.
He can't read.
He can't read.
Outside a unnamed city is the Zone, a mysterious region abandoned by man and reclaimed by nature. And the Zone is a room that will grant whoever enters it their deepest desire. A stalker, someone who will lead you to the room for a price. And our stalker is leading a professor, a writer, to the room, but the Zone may have other plans for them when they arrive in the Twilight Zone.
Or is it AutoZone?
I'm
an O'Reilly's guy,
The whole setup for Roadside Picnic and Stalker is like a pretty decent Twilight Zone episode, But basically, in the book at least, aliens come and visit Earth, and it's, a little bit referenced in the movie that might be what happens. Aliens come and visit Earth, and they leave, and then this zone where they were gets all messed up. It's all weird.
So in the book, it is just straight aliens. There's no ambiguity about that?
No, it's just aliens showed up and left.
Did you hear about the thing that happened in Vegas with the aliens?
Wait, there was aliens in Vegas?
Wait, what happened?
There was this thing where someone caught it on like their Ring door camera or whatever, or it was a police, like the body cam of this thing that fell out of the sky, and you could see like it looked kind of like a meteor, and there was like green lighting in it. And there was a police, phone call that went in where someone was like, something crash landed in our backyard, and there's these men back there that are like 8 to 10 feet tall. We're terrified. and he's like, look, and she's the operator's like, okay. And he's like, look, I'm not drunk. I'm not high. We are terrified. You need to send somebody here. And my mom's telling me about this, and I'm like, no, because, science has, destroyed me. I'm terrified after seeing Signs at a young age.
You know, M. Night Shyamalan, Master of Terror.
It's a great film. You need to watch it.
I've seen Signs with Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix.
Just because you can name the people in the movie doesn't mean you've seen it.
I know. You said that last time and you're like, okay, I never really watched Signs.
No. I watched Signs. I watched it because Dad watched Signs, and that was the only movie that ever, like, freaked him out.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. That was like 20 years ago almost.
You don't remember things 20 years ago, Randy?
You don't remember things that happened earlier today.
Well, yeah, but this is a movie. Movies
like
are different.
Us saying that this was a Stalker podcast and we're talking about science here. Dean doesn't even remember that.
Wait, this is a Stalker podcast?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, shit. So Signs.
Yeah.
Yes.
So apparently something crash landed. They saw it. Then there was like deputy body cam footage where they were outside of the place where it landed. And they're like, shit, I don't want to go back there. I'm terrified. And then I was like, oh
they
my
were scared.
God.
That's
I was like,
so
no.
funny.
No. And they're like, yeah, these big black SUVs showed up and they blacked out the backyard. And the body cam footage for the deputies, they blacked it out as soon as they got into the backyard. They're like, oh yeah, it's private property, so we can't show it. And I'm like, bullshit. I've seen
fucking
so many.
BS.
I've seen so many of these videos on YouTube with the body cam.
I've seen people die on these fucking body
Exactly.
cams. Fuck you.
So after hearing that, I'm like, oh shit, they're coming for us.
Could you imagine Vegas turns into the Zone, and the stalkers are just like the slot machine grandmas being like, I will show you the way through Vegas' strip.
I think we've gotten way off. And also, like, in the movie, okay, it's like only alluded to that it may have been aliens. Like, they don't really know what it is in the movie.
In the movie, I just thought it was, something like Chernobyl.
But here's
a lot of people get that idea from the movie.
Because the games are about the zone happening around Chernobyl, a lot of people kind of rewrite history here, saying that the movie takes place in that same kind of headspace, that same kind of idea. Chernobyl hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, this movie comes out in 79. Chernobyl was 84, 86, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And, the book came out in, like, 71.
It's really interesting because the movie, I feel, is making... It's tipping its hat to, like, nuclear power, nuclear radiation, and things like that. Just how they describe the zone. It's like, oh, stalkers, if they're there for too long, then their kids that they have get messed up. And that's like, well, radiation stuff from, like, Nagasaki, Hiroshima. That's a real thing that happened. And there's that shot at the end of the movie where, oh, they're back home in, like, nice... Okay, not nice. In the slums of civilization, and there's the giant nuclear power plant, like, in the skyline. And it's like, okay, this is definitely tipping its hat at this, like, nuclear power, science, civilization thing. But I feel the movie's more interested in how the zone is, like, this beautiful nature thing, and civilization is this sepia, dark, gritty place. And it's almost like, guys, maybe the combustion engine was a bad idea.
Oh God,
it might
not
be
going to
that
get
kind
into
of
like
thing.
the industrial society and consequences have been a disaster for the human race. We're not going to get into that.
Randy, where did you get the sunglasses and the hoodie? Is that a?
Oh, I came in with that.
Oh, is that
I
the
go
uniform?
everywhere with those.
Randy really digs the Ted Kaczynski chic line at the Gap.
No. We don't have to get into this. We're cutting all of this. No, it's joke.
Randy's like, they're coming for me. The three-letter agencies.
I think the main kind of like the movie tipping its hat off to the book is the only character that shares a name between the two. The daughter, Monkey, is the only character that shares a name between the two, and the same things that are alluded about her in the book are alluded in the movie, with the Stalker's kids coming out weird. In the movie, it's like, oh, she can't use her legs very well. Well, in the book, they call her Monkey because she's hairy all over and has black eyes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, like, she comes out weird. She acts normal up until, like, a certain age in the book, and then kind of devolves from there. But yeah, so I thought it was, like, weird that was the only character they used the same name in the book and the movie.
I mean, even in the movie, it's a thing where it's like her legs are like crippled or in some such. It's never very specific what it is.
Well, she has like crutches.
Yeah, but the other thing is she can move shit with her mind. Like she has Matilda telekinetic
huge
powers.
Spoiler right there.
I know.
The very last scene.
Movie is let me do some quick math. 44 years old.
When has that ever mattered to you? You get all upset. You're like, no, we can't do spoilers.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah, actually, that's probably pretty true with this. Because her moving stuff with her mind at the end of the movie is pretty much inconsequential, I have to say.
It feels more like it's a epilogue afterthought to be like, no, God is real and the zone is real. Like that's what it feels like.
I don't even know if it's supposed to mean anything like that. It's just a cool thing to put at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And you put Beethoven in there just over it, and it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Pretty solid shit.
There's a doggy.
The dog is weird. Okay. Firstly, the dog is weird.
He's pretty.
Randy's like, the dog is weird, and you're like, the dog's pretty. I'm not sure if the dog's real.
Well, the dog comes back with them from the zone.
It does.
Is the zone real?
Okay. Do they ever come back from the zone? Is that just... Does he go into the
zone at all?
Does he go into the wish granter or whatever?
Go into the room.
Go into the room, and this is what he sees afterwards. His back home with the dog and his wife
family.
And child.
Mm-hmm. And then, man, that'd be a pretty fucked up. Like, what's your greatest desire? To go back to living in poverty in communist Russia. That's rough, brother. That's rough.
That's the way it goes, man.
That's the way it goes.
He just wants to go back to his regular life, man, when people aren't trying to blow up the room, the wish granter.
Tell me why so. He's doing some shit in there, man.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Thank you. But yeah, so this is a weird movie if we want to try and hit it from like a narrative perspective, because there's about an hour where shit just does not happen, right?
Well, what do you mean? No, plenty of shit happens throughout the movie. It just happens very slowly.
Or is it just there's not that much dialogue?
There's not a lot of dialogue.
There's really not a lot of dialogue in the movie.
And I mean, it takes about 9 minutes to finally get dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, that opening sequence where it's the sepia and it's going into the room and it's the bed, I love that tracking shot they're doing in there. It's, again, the composition of the movie is super pretty.
I mean, can we talk about how the sepia, the yellow is? That was non-intentional, right? Or was it intentional?
Okay, so that...
For anybody who's even seen like the first frame of this movie, it is yellow.
Yeah.
Yes, it is like classic sepia. So that was an intentional decision. They wanted to differentiate like the zone. That's why the zone's like very naturalistic, greens, what yellow. It looks like, real life.
Mm-hmm.
And the city industrial scape, that was sepia because it's doing this visual metaphor. It's like, visually separating what the zone is and what the city is. But what you're getting at is, so Andrei Tarkovsky, he filmed the entire movie, or I'd say 80% of it.
Yeah, 80% in color and the rest was in sepia.
Oh, I'm not even talking about that. He films 80% of it and then sends it back to the lab in Moscow, and when they get it out, all the footage is fucked. So he goes, films 80%, they send it back to Moscow because they're shooting on location in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So by the time they get it sent back to like a processing lab and they view it, the entire thing's tinted green, and they find out that the new film they used was like a defective batch.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, oh, well, fuck it. We'll reshoot the whole movie from top to bottom. This is the third... what we see here is either the second or third attempt at filming the entire thing.
And he wanted to abandon the project a couple of times.
Oh, yeah. How
long did it take to get made?
I believe the production timeline on this was probably like 8 months to a year, something like that. But the budget to this is like wild.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so... It's 1979, right? The budget for this is 1 million rubles. Do you want to take a guess how much that is in American?
200 grand?
No.
No?
No. You want shot in the dark.
Couple mil?
13 grand.
Oh my god.
This movie's budget was 13 grand.
Okay.
Well, okay, but it's rubles in Russia. It goes a little farther than 13 grand American in America.
Yeah, but that's one of those things where I'm like, how did you make this for like 13 grand?
Dean, not a lot happens in this movie. They probably spent all 13 grand of it and the train station scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, how do you spend money with the rest of the movie?
I mean, building the room, maybe? Building that complex?
No, they found that on location.
They just found that.
They just found that.
There's like, we just went out to some like abandoned nuclear sites and we found it.
Yeah.
I mean, bro, they probably just got most of that stuff from the Russian government, like the tanks and whatnot.
I think they actually did. Like, those were decommissioned tanks, and I think when we see it in the movie, there's like only like 4 or 5 of them. The first time when he shot it with the original goat, there was like 30 of them. And then they were like, we got to do it again. And the Russian guy was like, no, fuck you. We'll send you like these many.
Yeah, because originally they wanted to shoot at an old Chinese mine, but apparently there had been like an earthquake right before they were going to begin filming, and it destroyed the mine. So they had to end up, moving production over to 2 deserted hydro plants by the, oh my god, I don't know if I can pronounce this.
Well, go for it.
I believe in you.
We'll cut it if you don't get it right.
By the Hagala River.
That's probably fine.
It's in Estonia. So, so I feel like the zone and the room, that these are like actual buildings. And it's just, let's reinforce them and use them so that we can film in here and not be crushed by whatever's left over. But, that filming in that location also had its very negative effects.
Oh, yes. I think
you alluded to this when we watched the movie.
Well, you asked the question because watching the movie, you're like, oh, did people fucking die making this or something?
No. It was the scene in which the guy has to like wade, or the 3 of them have to wade through like that chest high water into the final room, into the like final little extra hump they have to take. They have to wade through like chest high water for literally like 3 feet. And you're like, and this is where they got cancer. And I was just like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's not wrong.
The plants they were filming at, I guess they were all had like tainted water, and there's like a bunch of asbestos in there, and it was one of those things where
it's a decommissioned power plant.
Yeah, and I think like 10 people on the crew, including Tarkovsky, all got cancer.
Yeah, Tarkovsky, his wife, and Anatoly. I forget which one he is. If he's
I believe he's the writer.
The writer.
Okay.
Yeah.
They all got lung cancer, and it ended up killing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Tarkovsky's like, I think he lives only like 8 years after this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it was just like they got lung cancer. They got like a rare form of lung cancer.
And they were like, I know where this comes from.
Exactly. It's like, what are the odds? And then, 3 out of, however many in your crew. Because I imagine more people got sick just from being in the area.
Oh, yeah. And that gives this movie a really weird vibe when you know it. Because it's like Tarkovsky's last ride as a director, because this is the last movie he makes with like the Soviets. This is his last Soviet film, because after this he moves to Italy. He had the whole reshoot thing. He had the cancer from this. This feels almost like his last like run kind of thing, and everything after this is like the epilogue. Granted, he makes like 3 more films after this, and they're all masterpiece because the man only makes masterpieces. But this is like really interesting when you look at it, because the whole movie is kind of like, I looked at it as this metaphor for like faith and finding faith, and I'm wondering if that was like conscious to him, because like what do you think the zone is, or the room is?
I mean, yeah, I could see that being like salvation, heaven. I kind of took it like in a Walking Dead kind of thing, where it's just there has to be something better than what we have. And in most of these scenarios, there isn't. You're kind of just stuck, and you have to do what you have, what you can do. But yeah, I could see it where it would be, more of a biblical thing, where it's just, the room is heaven, and he just can't cross that threshold.
I think they allude to it kind of heavy-handedly near the end of the movie, where he makes, I don't remember I don't speak Russian, so I can't quote the movie, but
I demand an exact quote.
An exact
Sigablit.
But basically, he says something to the effect of, I can only take you here, I can't put you in the room. I can only take you to the room, I can't personally push you over that threshold, which is like, you can lead a man to water, but can't make him drink. The whole thing with the faith too, this man can bring the it's a Russian movie, the Christian faith to you, probably, Eastern Orthodox.
If you had to take a shot in the dark.
If I had to take a shot in the dark, bring the faith to you, but he can't
make you believe.
Yeah, he can't make you believe. He can present all this to you, but he can't make you believe. You have to take that leap. You have to choose that path,
And the whole fact, like, the characters that we're dealing with, it's like, the Stalker, he makes that point where he's like, this is faith, this gives me purpose, I want to make people happy, and, bringing you to the room can make you happy, and that's like my purpose, right? And then if I take the idea that maybe the room is heaven or God or whatever, the scientist shows up, the professor, with a bomb, and Nietzsche's thing of like, we have killed God or whatever. And he's like, the scientist,
God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, the scientist or the professor comes with a bomb, a piece of technology. He's like, I'm going to destroy the room. And I was like, oh, he's coming to destroy God. And the writer, who is like, I, created this stuff. I want to be remembered, but he fears God because that would show him his true self. And it's like, it's a very interesting thing because it's like, I don't know where I'm getting at. I just think that's a really interesting read.
Okay, here's the problem with the movie is that I don't really know what it's getting at either. Like, I get it, all right, but it is dense. You need a fucking butcher's cleaver to get through this thing.
Yeah.
It kind of, I mean, last night, I was a little sleepy. I almost fell asleep while watching the movie.
Same.
Not gonna like.
Same. It again. I was like hurting through the first half. Part 2 brought me back. I was able to get part 2 moves a little bit quicker.
I think the part where most people are gonna like try and snooze off is like right after they get to the zone, and they're just kind of like exploring. Mm-hmm. They haven't gotten to the room yet where they start beaten down philosophical pretty fiercely. Yeah. And it's after the cool train sequence where they like escape into the zone. Mm-hmm. Basically when they're on like the train car for like an unbroken like 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever.
It's 4.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
You have it in your notes?
Yeah. Well, I have this. So there's this genre called slow cinema. Right?
Dean's favorite.
No. Okay. But I'm bringing this up because the movie's 162 minutes long. There's 142 shots in the movie. Right? So that means the shot average for the movie is 88 seconds, but there's a number of shots that are over 4 minutes long. And the train car sequence where they're going in, that one's I think the longest at like 7 minutes, I think. So yeah, but the movie is like doing this deliberate thing of pulling every second out of what's going on.
Wait, so you're saying the part where they're finally escaped the train station and they're on that little train car, that's 7 minutes of the camera going back and forth between the three of them?
Is it 7 minutes when they're trying to get to the little train car to escape?
Shit, I didn't note that down. But it's something where that train sequence is happening where there's just a 7 minute like static or being held.
Oh, it's probably them on the cart then.
Yeah, because
oh my god, no wonder I almost felt Jesus Christ. I mean,
I feel better
it looks
knowing
good.
that I wasn't the only one trying to pass out last night.
You started to watch this movie at like midnight.
No, I didn't. I started this at like 8.
Yeah, it ended around midnight.
Well, here's the like. This isn't to bash on the movie though. Like the movie is great. It's wonderful. It is an extremely pretty movie. It's got like these really heavy, weighty themes, but the thing is that the themes come through all at once and then not at all and then all at once and then not at all.
It's almost like the thing where it's the professor who's like, and here's my 15-minute lecture. Okay, now take 30 minutes to think about this while I go have a smoke, and I'll come back, give you another 15 minutes of my lecture, 30 minutes to figure this out, I'm gonna go have a smoke. It's almost like that.
Yeah, except like usually with that, like, you're not being presented with anything new during that 30 minutes. With the movie, on the other hand, you're presented with like this feast for the eyes in between, which kind of like keeps your mind off of it. So it's one of the things where I think the intellectual tour de force of the movie is also its downfall. I think the movie is doing its, I don't know how to put it. I don't want to say trying too hard because it's not, but it is kind of weighing down on the audience a little too much.
It's leaning in. It's leaning in, being like, "You guys got your notebooks today?"
Yes,
because
exactly.
we're watching Stalker.
You can't just have a beer and popcorn with this movie. It's a coffee and notebook movie.
This movie had me missing 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh God,
2001: A Space Odyssey is a masterpiece as a Stalker. But that's some heavy shit because you hated watching 2001.
It was just too much. It got too quiet, and yeah.
My favorite story is when you were touched by the cinema gods and had a full-on panic attack during 2001.
Jesus Christ.
It was great.
I mean, we're in a jammed theater. It's like an original auditorium, so you are like, shoulder to shoulder with people in this theater, and we're going into the deep space theme that takes what, like 10 minutes or
when he goes in the black hole?
Yeah,
it's something like that. It's
10 minutes of just bright colors and nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
And I had a panic attack in the theater, and I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I am in the middle of nowhere. I'm it's overwhelming. And I told him after the movie, he goes, "That's fucking awesome." And I was like,
I knew he would say something like that, dude. He'd be like, "That's cool.
That's cool as shit.
That's badass.
That's fucking do the movie like got you, man."
That's terrible.
That's why he was like, "I hope you have a reaction like this with Stalker." And I'm like,
no.
"Why?"
There's
I'm like,
no Stalker. You go snoozy, little bye-byes.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie it's really good. Like, it's hard to talk about it because there are problems with it, but you can't really knock the movie for those problems. You kind of go, that's good. You tried.
Well, okay, let's do this, right? Let's see, like, what are the things that we really liked about it, and what are the things like we just really didn't like? Because we've talked about like what the movie's about. It's a very weighty movie. It's a lot of themes. It's talking about like God, nuclear power, all this other stuff.
I mean, I love the cinematography.
Oh, okay. Well, we can just talk about how the movie looks for like 10 minutes.
Oh,
gorgeous movie.
Anytime they did one of those dolly shots over the water. Oh, that is.
Remember
just
how I
eyes.
told you about that shot where it's going over the water and just passes the gun and all that other stuff? And I'm like, when I forget my children's name, that shot will still be in my brain. It is so fucking
what
good.
A
That's
nerd.
Terrible. You forget your children's name. What's wrong with you?
I forget my own name.
He's like, fuck those kids, but this beautiful scene.
None of them turned out to be doctors. I don't give a shit about them.
Exactly. None of my kids turned out to be Andrei Tarkovsky. So what is it?
But yeah, the shots in this movie are all incredible. I mean, it just cannot be understated how beautiful, especially once they get into the zone and everything's so naturalistic. You're just like, wow, this place looks amazing. I'd love to hike through wherever crappy place they are.
You feel like you could actually breathe in the zone.
Oh, true. I was about to say it feels oxygenated. God, that is so lame.
Dude, where did the beret come from? It's on top of your Kaczynski chic thing.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, compared to, their reality that they're living, this sepia-tinted world, but it feels just kind of toxic. It doesn't look like, oh, it's a sepia movie. No, it feels like they're living in the middle of like smoke, like chemicals.
Yes. It feels like there's a chemical haze over everything because of the sepia tone, the yellow tone, everything.
They're living in like an oil barrel. Like also how the Stalker's house, when we see it, and the walls are that weird adobe.
Can we please talk about how weird those walls look in the first scene?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. Like, I'm like, what do they look like normally? I want to know what they look like just in natural lighting. Do they look as lumpy and like weirdly offsetting in real life as they do in sepia tone?
It's got to be water in the walls or something. But it just looks like there's like monsters in the walls.
Yes, exactly. You're like, am I making out a face here? Or is my mind making things up here?
And there's
like, is that the Necronomicon?
There is water everywhere. Like inside their house, there's water like on the floor, like kind of seeping in through the floorboards, and I'm like, what?
Everything is wet in this movie.
Yeah. Everything's wet and dripping. This is a pretty wet movie. It's got that drip going on. And I'm trying. But I bring it up because it's so weird, because it's like this natural thing. Water is seeping into this like, sepia world. And when you're in the zone, you see the machines and it's like, oh, it's kind of like this like, nature influences one thing and technology influences the other in these weird ways. But it's like, it's also a thing where Tarkovsky's obsessed with water.
Is he?
I mean, in Mir, there's that whole thing where it's like the rain, and in this, there's all the water in here. In Andrei Rublev, there's this whole thing with water. He has that's a motif that shows up in a lot of his movies, because he's obsessed with like this naturalistic world. Water is a really good indicator for that, and also, you put water on the floor, it looks fucking good.
Yeah, it looks amazing in this movie.
It does, but water also has its symbolism and its meaning. So it's like he could try to go based off of something else, trying to tell a story through the water. I
mean, also the water is like the one thing that like keeps everything connected, other than the Stalker. But yeah, the water is the one thing that keeps the zone and the place in Estonia connected together. They're both one and the same in a way through the water, but they are different.
Yeah.
Well, you need water for life, right? It's kind of thing like the zone's alive and it's full of this water, and so the city it has water in it, but doesn't feel alive, and it has much less water. It's less wet. Most things are just kind of soaked, kind of thing. And that's like, oh, it's like a dying civilization where the zone's thriving, but no one can go there because it's the Twilight Zone.
I mean, that was like one of the very first, ideas of like, oh, where does all life come from? Back before they figured atoms and whatnot was water. Everything is water,
You're water. I'm water. Everything's fucking water.
Everything's water. Like, that's before they figured out, like that's before there was 4 elements, there was only 3.
There were only
that
3
type of
elements?
shit.
Oh, shit. But
it was water.
It was
water. And water.
This is a pretty wet podcast.
Water, air, water, ice.
Oh,
crazy. It makes up everything.
That's fucking wild. But yeah, the look of the movie, that naturalism, and I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck those walls are made out of.
Yeah, I don't know, but they chose some nice walls to film with right there that kind of get that uneasy tone in right away. Also, the fact that you're like peering through a door at this family that's all sleeping in one bed, and the walls are so unsettlingly weird, and everything, it's sepia tone, so everything's weird already. I don't know of any other movie that's in sepia tone.
At least none made past like 1930.
I mean, it reminded me a lot of The Wizard of Oz, where we start in sepia and then, we transition into color, but it felt like we kept going back and forth between these two worlds versus, Wizard of Oz, where we progress into color and then, come full circle back to sepia.
Oddly enough, one of Andrei Tarkovsky's favorite films was The Wizard of Oz.
Nah, no shit.
Yeah,
As soon as she mentioned that,
you were just like, yeah, this makes sense.
This makes sense. Okay, yeah.
But the name of the movie threw me, because, we have that long scene of them, peering through the doors and into the bed. And I'm like, oh, okay, Stalker. So we've got, an actual Stalker issue. Oh. And then I was like, oh no, this is not a Stalker issue. I'm like, oh, okay.
So that's actually funny, because the guy that wrote the book, Roadside Picnic, he introduced the English word stalker into the Russian vernacular.
Okay.
Like, that was like an invention he came up with.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
He was looking for like a word to like name the people that like go out into the zone. He was going to name them like trappers or something something along those lines. Like prospectors, I think was the first thing he went with.
Yeah.
Because this is where like the book and the movie are like the book and the movie are very different in a lot of ways, but the stalkers don't just like lead people into the zone in the book. They like go there to recover artifacts and bring them out of the zone to sell for money. And so he eventually came up with Stalker, and it just kind of like smash hit. Like, even like when the Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened, the people that would go into the zone would be called Stalkers.
Yeah.
For a completely unrelated like thing. It was just in the Russian vernacular, and they're like, yeah, you're a stalker. This is the exclusion zone around Chernobyl. Bada bing, bada bong, you're a stalker. Here you go.
I mean, that's just a great fucking name for a movie, for a book. I'm surprised.
No, it wasn't the name for the book.
I'm surprised he didn't be like, Roadside Picnic? That's pretty good. Stalker. And just puts the fucking sticky note on top of the book cover. Like, how did he... Because it's such a good name. It's evocative. It gets your mind rolling. It makes you think it's a horror movie at first, right?
I think that's the main thing, is that it's evocative,
But did you think it was like going to be a slasher movie?
I didn't think it was going to be a slasher movie, but I thought, okay, we're going to have an issue and see how this, progresses. And then I'm like, oh no, this is very different than what I thought I was walking into.
I would have probably thought of like a very slow, methodical, kind of like through the eyes of the stalker type of movie.
Yeah, so it's like, I didn't think, anything, was going to happen, but like what Randy was saying, I thought, that's what we're getting, like a glimpse into the person, his world, why he operates the way he operates. And I'm like, oh no, we're out in the middle of Chernobyl. Cool.
Except it's not true. It's in Estonia.
It's in Estonia.
It's one of those things where it's just like your brain wants it to be Chernobyl because you're filling in that gap.
Yes, you're filling in that mental gap. Everybody associates this movie with like Chernobyl nuclear disaster.
3 Mile Island, some sort of like nuclear apocalypse, right?
Yeah, it's just like, it's not, that hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't, but the brain wants to latch onto something that's familiar.
I thought like both the movie and the book came out after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, before like I read the book, and then I was like, what the fuck? And then I was like, holy shit, it's been all turned upside down. The games have ruined me.
I mean, that is an interesting thing, because, I feel the book, the movie, the games, they're all like different takes, right?
Correct.
This would be you'd probably describe it, this is like the philosophical, very, thinky part.
Correct.
How would you describe like the book and the game, like tonally?
So, I mean, the book is like kind of like a pulpy sci-fi, but...
Oh, I love that. I love the sound of that.
But it's a pulpy sci-fi, but it's about regular people. that's kind of like the pitch for the book when they because I read like the notes that they had and whatnot. But the pitch for the book is basically it's like aliens visit and they leave suddenly and nobody's seen them or whatever, and they left behind trash on their roadside picnic.
They went to Vegas.
Yeah.
And this is kind of these people dealing with this. And they're just normal, everyday people. The main character, he just happened to have lived near this little village in the middle of nowhere. And so he knows the area. He knows where to go through the zone, whatever. He's grown up here. And the other characters in the book are, people that are just profiteers or scientists. But they're all normal people that eat, they drink, just normal people dealing with the zone.
Mm.
And so the game, on the other hand, is a little more philosophical than that. I think the book kind of just has like a fun romp through it. It throws out a little philosophical ideas here and there, but not much. And then the game takes that little bit of philosophical ideas, adds on top of it just a little bit, and then, makes it about the Chernobyl nuclear disaster and bada bing, bada bong, call it a day.
Yeah.
Guns and shooty and finding artifacts. And the movie is kind of like the odd one out.
Mm-hmm.
The movie was like, no, it's all about the philosophy, and I don't give a shit about aliens or artifacts.
It is very weird. Like, they are all taking this vague concept of there's the zone, and there's... is there a room in the book in the games?
So there's not a room in the book, but there's a room in the game.
Mm.
The room in the book is just like this giant artifact called the Gold Sphere. Does the same thing as in the movie, grants your most desired wish. And in the game, there is like the Wish Granter, which is like a room in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, ostensibly probably where like the reactor was.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out it's like fake in the game, but that's like a whole nother thing. But basically, most people believe it as literally the room from Stalker.
Okay.
And that's interesting. In the game, it's like called out as being fake, because that's something a lot of people speculate in when you're watching the movie, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, because nothing happens. Like, there's no like, oh, where's the fucking aliens? Where's the supernatural stuff? Is the Stalker just kind of like, it'll grant your wish, I swear, and like kind of conning these people? Or he's a true believer, I think, but I'm wondering if somebody just like, this was a rumor and he's just like on faith, the room is magic.
Yeah, it's leaning really, really heavily into those faith vibes, because he's trying to like lead you through this world of traps, but you don't see any of these traps, right? Like, the only trap they get caught in is one where they get a little lost one time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's saying, like, oh, it's a dangerous place here. You can never go back the way you came and all that stuff. But you never see any of that. I mean, in the book and in the game, like, it's very clear, like, you take one wrong step and you get thrown 10 feet up in the air and ringed out like a towel. Like, but it's not a thing in the movie.
That would have been entertaining to see.
That would have been crazy.
Could you imagine fucking the Russian Robert Duvall just gets strung out like an old towel?
Jeez.
I mean, if an alien just walked into the frame in one of the scenes, it would have blown my mind. Be like, what? We're dealing with aliens?
Well, I think it's just like him leaning so strongly into like the faith themes of the movie is just like, this person's leading through all this stuff and says, oh, it's dangerous out there. Don't do that. Don't sin. Even though you can see it, like, you look around you and you're like, well, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the thing where when the writer's approaching the house and he's like, I'm just going to go straight into it. Fuck you guys. And as they're approaching, they're like, all right, do it at your own risk. And as he gets closer, he hears the thing saying, stop, come back. And when he goes back, they're just like, why'd you call me back? And the Stalker's like, I didn't say fucking dick. Yeah, and the professor's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, no, the two of them, the professor and the Stalker, both think that each other said it.
Yeah, they hear it too.
They hear it too, and they're like, oh, why'd you call him back? And I was like, I didn't do it. And the other guy, me neither. And, the guy comes back and he's like, why'd you guys call me back? We didn't.
And that's the thing where it's like the zone is so vague as to what it can and cannot do. And there's...
So vague in the movie.
Very. But we were talking about like the cinematography. So, Becky, you remember the shot where it's coming in and it's through like the car door or whatever?
Yeah.
And, the grass is kind of moving out of the way. And, at first we're like, oh, our characters are going through and they're looking through this. And then all three of them walk in front of frame.
Yeah.
What moved the grass?
The camera, obviously.
Well, obviously the camera, but I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that...
The wind?
The dog, probably. Yeah. You could probably explain it as the dog, but it's supposed to be like this ominous force,
It's like the Evil Dead vision, right? Where
Yes,
it's like,
exactly.
Like the zone is watching them.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is Evil Dead.
Did they have their camera on wooden boards and, Tarkovsky was just running through the field with it?
No, Tarkovsky's on his motorcycle being like, don't worry, guys, I got this. That would be so great if there was an Evil Dead vision cam in this.
We're going to get so off track if we start talking about Evil Dead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. But I think, the whole force of... I think this is kind of like my main gripe. We're going to get into my main gripe about this movie. It's so heavy-handed in its themes, while also being a little obtuse about it.
Very obtuse.
It's just like... The theme is like so blaringly obvious. It's about God and faith and all that stuff. But he's just so thick with it that you're like, well, there is like... I could cut through this and like learn more. But I feel like I've kind of already got it.
Yeah. Just kind of like nailing it into, the coffin. It's like, I get it.
Well, I get it, and there's more I could pursue here, but I don't feel like it's necessary to like cut through the dialogue to figure out the real meat and potatoes of the movies ideas, because it's like kind of presented up front. You're like, the Stalker is like a missionary, or however you want to call it, somebody who brings people to the faith. And then the professor's a man of science. No shit.
Coming to investigate
yes,
this.
And then the writer is somebody who writes cynically about life. And it's so obvious and heavy-handed. Like, bro, I get it.
Well, I think it is kind of heavy. That is... I'm pretty sure it's about, God. I think it's a pretty easy...
It can't be about anything. If you tell me it's about something else, I'm going to be like, shut the fuck up.
Of course.
Dean's it's either Evil Dead or a ham sandwich. It has to be one of these two.
There's no other choice. But I think each character also brings their own self-contained theme within them. Like the writer, right? When he's going in, I think his thing is like the truth of like the human soul, or like truth of desire, because... They talk about a porcupine, which is like the previous Stalker, or the famous one.
Correct.
And he's
teacher.
like, yeah, the teacher. And the Stalker's telling them about porcupine. He's like, yeah, he went into the room and he got wealthy. He got all the money he could ever want, and he killed himself like 3 days later. And they're like, oh, that's wild. And at the end of the movie, you find out why. And it's because he went into the room because he wanted to save his brother from execution. But the room doesn't grant your
didn't
wish.
His brother died to the zone?
It was something like that. But I think he went there to like save his brother or do something.
Correct.
But the room doesn't grant you wishes. It grants you your deepest desire.
Correct.
And Porcupine was greedy, so he wanted wealth more than anything.
Yeah.
And thus he got, all the money. And the writer is like, I don't want to go in there now because I don't know what it'll give me, and I fear that.
Yeah.
Because what is it?
He fears himself.
He fears himself. Consciously, he wants to be, a writer remembered forever.
And that's why he's like, they might grant me eternal life.
Oh, okay, the writer character is probably my favorite character in the movie. He's very talky. I love him. He was in Mirror, and I think he's Andrei Rublev in Tarkovsky's other film, Andrei Rublev. But I like it because he's like, man, living forever would fucking suck. And I'm like,
he's a knower.
Brother. Let's preach it. Like, go off, brother. But it's also, he's funny. He's funny as hell in this movie.
Yeah, he's pretty funny sometimes.
Yeah.
There's also the gag where the phone rings in the fucking room.
Oh, yes. That is one of the best parts, where the phone rings and they're like, oh, no, this isn't the clinic. And he puts the phone down and they're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, okay. Gotta explain the joke here. So they're like arguing, right? The Stalker's like, writer guy, fuck you. Writer guys, fuck you too. And the professor's like, no, fuck both of you. And then the phone goes off and he's like, ah, goddamn it, they're arguing. And he's like, hey, no, this isn't clinic. In the zone where we haven't seen dick. There's no
They're
people.
in an abandoned power plant ostensibly.
Yeah, there's no like power. There's nothing. And then he's like, oh, wait a minute.
All three of them just look at the phone.
Did that shit just actually happen? And then the professor's like, give me a second. And he just makes a fucking phone call.
The professor like reaches for the phone and the Stalker's like, don't do that. And the professor just, I'm gonna do it anyway.
I'm so hungry. I'm gonna order a pizza just for me. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
And then we get to figure out like the professor's like his whole deal, like why he's there.
Yeah, well, that's when you find out he wants to destroy the room, and then he ends up not really going through with it. That's kind of vague. But the professor, this is where we get into his thing. I think I'm trying to figure out what his deal is, because if like, the writer, he's afraid of like, the human spirit, the soul, like he's representing like the dark reaches of the soul, right? What's the professor kind of doing?
Well, the professor, he feels that the room only brings evil, which, again, kind of heavy-handed science versus...
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
He doesn't want the little dictators to get the power of the room.
Yes, he doesn't want the little dictators to get the power of the room. He doesn't want the room to corrupt people. He hears a story about Porcupine. The Porcupine went into the room and look what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Stalker only knows of Porcupine, or only has the story of Porcupine going to the room and coming out and what happened to him. All the other people the Stalkers led to the room, he doesn't have stories about them. He's like, after I led them out of the zone, that was the last time I ever saw them. Never spoke to them again. Have no idea what happened.
They paid me my 50 rubles, and that was it.
And that was it. And the professor's just like, well, so one of one that we know about, he hung himself 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably blow up the room. It's a bad thing.
This way, no one can access it. No one can, be killed by it or use it for...
No one can be corrupted by it.
Which is... It's a very anti-science thing. I figure he would want to investigate it and truly understand what the hell it is, but he's like, no, we must destroy it.
It's because there's no understanding it, because it's religion, it represents religion. Yeah. It's purely belief-based. To understand it is a foolhardy...
It's not something physical that you could just take apart and, analyze it. It's something that you have to believe. And that would be terrifying to him.
As a great poet once said, I believe because it is absurd.
It would be fucking terrifying to be in the zone on. Granted, it looks like so pretty, but I think if I walk there, I'd be like, I haven't heard a bird or a dog or anything. That's another thing. The sound in this movie.
Here's another thing though that differentiates. I don't know. Ooh, look at me! I read the book, so I'm going to talk about the book the whole fucking time.
Why do you think we brought you on this episode, Randy?
Damn it, man! I feel so lame. I'm like, the book. But
no, you're fine.
Yeah. Another difference here is that in the zone, in the book, there are no birds, there are no dogs, there is nothing other than plant life. In the movie, we do hear birds, and there is a dog. And you're just kind of like, well, if there are all these traps around, supposedly, how's the dog getting around?
That's why I think the dog is something else.
Well, also, they do kind of mention in the movie... Right, the Stalker says, the zone changes, but only when humans are around. Because humans are the only things affected by...
The zone?
Religion.
So would that make the dog like a...
Well, the dog's just natural. The dog doesn't give a shit about God or...
Well, no, that's why I'm like, is the dog supposed to be like a spirit guide or something? Because he stays with our Stalker in the movie.
Oh, what? Like he's an angel?
Yeah.
Something of the zone that can cross between realms?
Because you see him,
I didn't think about this before.
Kind of lingering in the shadows, and then when the Stalker's, going to sleep on the ground and he's like halfway in the water and half on land.
Which, beautiful composition, by the way.
Beautiful shot. Nobody would ever do it.
Yeah. But then you see the dog come up to him, smell him, and then lays down on him. And I'm like, is this a way that he's protecting the Stalker? And then he comes back and he lives with the Stalker and the family.
He's a guardian angel.
Yeah, that was the vibe that I was getting.
And that's actually a good point, because when we see the dog again, or at least later on in the movie, it's in front of the two dead bodies in the...
two skeletons that are embracing each other.
Yeah, they're embracing each other, and it's sitting in front of them like it's guarding it, right? And there's that weird thing where the door opening and closing in the background, and you're like, is somebody there? And then you pull out and it's like, oh no, all of our characters on the other side, the dog is looking at them. The door open and close behind him is
like the wind or
something, the zone, whatever. And it's like the dog is guarding this passageway, right? It is St. Peter protecting the pearly gates or whatever. And it's like that.
Even though the thing behind him is not the room, it's something completely different.
Yeah.
That's the real room.
The real room.
The
room without the koi fish.
I love that thing where it's the room just has fucking koi fish in there for some reason.
I'm not sure if they're koi fish, but that's the vibe they get,
Yeah.
It's catfish.
Maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, the dog being an angel or some sort of spirit guide, that makes a lot of sense. And then extrapolating that, then the daughter monkey, that's a Christ-like figure, right?
Well,
well, when we see her back in the city, like when we finally get a shot of just her, then the color's back in the cityscape.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, she is of the zone, and she is born of, like, in the zone and of, people here, and she's in this realm, and it's like, oh, the zone is now outside. Like, you can interpret that as like a Christ-like figure, and then that makes the ending kind of work a little, because she's performing miracles, right?
Yeah. Man, see, this is what I was getting about.
It's like
the movie's about God and Christianity and Jesus and shit. Yeah, okay, now we can dig it a little deeper and figure out who is Jesus and shit.
And then it's like, fuck, and then it's like, the Stalker is like, we're saying he's like a missionary, somebody of faith, but it's like...
He's
a believer.
Oh, God, what is the phrase? He's a fisher of men?
A fisher...
Or
what dating site is that?
No, it's from when Jesus goes up to the two fishermen or whatever, and he recruits them. They become apostles or whatever, and he says, "I'll teach you to be fishers of men."
Oh, I see.
Something along those lines.
Not reading your Bible, I see.
I have read it once, many moons ago.
I'm probably only the New Testament.
Old
Testament is thick, bro. Like, there's no way young Dean read through that thing.
I skimmed through the Old Testament when I got to the cool...
me has hard times.
When I got to the cool fantasy shit. The Old Testament, there's some cool-ass fantasy shit that would make Tolkien blush.
God,
all right?
Tolkien probably blushed when he read it, and that's why he wrote The Lord of the Rings, okay? Like,
him, C.S. Lewis, they were like, let's just do the Bible to Electric Boogaloo.
Okay, but C.S. Lewis is a little more heavy-handed than Tolkien is.
Yeah.
Tolkien is like, well, it's also World War I. And C.S. Lewis is like, no, it's just Jesus.
Did you know Aslan is Jesus? Yes, we know Aslan is Jesus.
Just like how I know the Stalker's a missionary, the professor represents science, and the writer represents cynicism. Yes, I get it.
Or is the Stalker? Was it Joseph? The father of Jesus, right? Like, is that too weird, or that doesn't line up?
So that never make much sense.
They never make a reference that Monkey is
an immaculate.
Yeah, no. It's just I got with you. My mom said you'd be problems. You were problematic.
Yes,
but then life would have been boring without you. So it's kind of like just weighing it.
Oh,
I love the wife, by the way. I love her.
The wife in the book, I think, is called Gouda, and
like
very different in the book.
Oh, really?
Yes, very different. She's in the movie, she kind of has this like love-hate relationship, and she's very torn and very kind of like outspoken about how torn she is with the Stalker. In the book, she's a little bit more it's similar, but she's more subdued with it. She's more just kind of like, okay, like, go ahead, go out into the zone. She's not throwing herself on the floor, writhing around all weirdly, like in the movie.
Like, bruh, get up! What are you doing?
I don't know. That's one of the weirdest scenes in like all of movie history for me. Like, she just throws herself on the floor, just
She's like, why must you go to the zone? I'm right here.
Why can't I be his zone?
Oh my god.
Come on, take me to the bone zone.
Shut the fuck up. That's terrible.
Oh god, this movie's great. But the wife, you make that mention, she does the whole thing where she's like, I'm with you and I don't fucking know why. My mother hated you, but there's something about that Stalker vibe, really gets me going. She's into rebels.
Well, she's like, I don't have any regrets, even though there's been pain, there's been, loss, there's been all this stuff. I don't have any regrets about being with you, though.
It was better than being bored.
What?
Basically, that's what she says.
Is she representative of something?
I don't know. That's maybe
is it
we
like
found
love?
Something that's not Jesus.
I didn't get any Mary vibes off of her.
No.
I'm wondering if it's like a love, like a pure kind of love, because she's like, I don't know why I'm with you, but I can't not be without you.
Yeah, you're right. It's a pure Christian love. There might be hardships and whatnot, but you won't regret it. I rolled my eyes there right after I said, just so everybody at home knows, I was like, oh god, right after I said that.
Well, I don't know if that's like an accurate thing. That was just like, I'm getting a vibe kind of thing.
Hey, I can interpret it that way, and you can't say my interpretations are not accurate.
I can't. Boo, would you like to tell him he's wrong?
I'm just here.
Yeah, Dean took a whole class saying that he can't say that.
Shut up. I was indoctrinated into artistic theory. It's fucking horrible. But there's so much of this movie that's like
Okay, can we
chewy.
talk about like one part of the movie that's just cool normally and it's not like heavily philosophical or anything?
Is it when they start shooting
the
through
train
the
escape?
gates?
Yeah.
The train escape was cool, right?
Yeah,
it was great.
I was like, oh, cool, we have some action, and then nothing after that.
It's great tension build up, and then when the payoff, when they're running through and the guns start going off, I'm like, this is cool. This is
like,
great
how are
escape
they not getting
shit.
shot? Because you see the professor?
The writer, I think. The
writer.
writer almost gets shot.
Yeah, a writer almost gets shot.
He drops,
really
and I'm like,
close.
man, didn't make it. And I'm like, oh no, he's fine. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's like the zone will not let him die yet.
Mhm.
He's like, you have a purpose, you know.
Well, it's because the guards are shooting from him from some probably like a block away or some shit through a window, you know.
And these are like, fucking cheap Soviet guns. They ain't fucking
Who
hitting
knows?
anything. They don't even could not afford real bullets. I use stones.
Also, I feel they didn't mention it in the movie, but I felt like they could have used to mention it about like why the guards weren't storming like the building they're in.
Yeah.
Well, the guards are like afraid of the zone. Like they don't want to go into the zone. It's pretty heavy in like the book or whatever. Like they're like trying to like sneak back into civilization, right? And there's like this guard post like right in front of them, and the guards know they're there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they like take pot shots at them or whatever behind some like gravestones that they're hiding behind, but they will not, no matter any circumstances, go and get them. And it's kind of like the same thing in the movie.
I think the movie would have benefited from that.
From like just mentioning it, like, oh, why aren't they following us? Well, because they're more afraid of the zone than they are afraid of not catching us.
It would have been great to see like one of the soldiers like fall over the line and end up in the zone and like,
be like, oh
my
god,
god, I can't get back. Yeah, that would have been great.
That would have been a wild thing if they're like doing the thing and he falls over into the zone and like he starts freaking out. I was like, I'm over, and one of his like commanding officers just caps him right there, just drops him.
That's a very different movie.
But like that
had, like,
setup of suspension would be like everything after that, no matter how slow it is. I'm like, what the fuck are they gonna see? That tension buildup would be insane. There could have just been
like one or two lines between like the Stalker and the other ones, when they're like in the building getting ready to leave. And they're like taking their sweet time.
Well, they gotta fill up the tank,
like
check the transmission.
It takes a while for them to like leave this building where they're being shot at in. And the Stalker could have just told them like, oh, like they won't pursue us. They're more afraid of the zone than anything.
But to keep that tension, you have to think that they're going to storm that building any second.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he could have said it, like, right afterwards. Like, keep the tension, and then, like, once they get on the cart, they're just like, where are the guards? And they don't come to the zone. They don't go there anymore. We don't go to Ravenholm.
Half-Life 2 reference?
Yes,
Current
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought they did, like, have a passing line of that.
They might have, and I'm just misremembering.
I felt like they had a passing line where it's like, oh, the guards are afraid of the zone or something like that. That's why like the Stalker. I think that was like maybe at the bar.
I think he might have said that like right before they like rode up behind the train, like when they were waiting in the like broken building. Also, I think all the buildings in the movie are like great, run down, glass all over the floor.
This is Soviet era production design. They just hid this shit laying around.
I mean, everything looks like a bombed out building, even though it's like nothing indicates that this is like a war torn area. But every building is like some bombed out piece of crap.
I mean, it's also fascinating because Andrei Tarkovsky was the art director for it.
Yeah,
he fired the previous art director after they were like, "You done fucked up the literal whole movie. I'll do it myself."
Yeah, that's what it is.
Called shot right there. But yeah, like the production design of the movie looks wonderful.
I remember the line that like we were thinking like may have been mentioned, and they were talking about the train, and they're like, "Why do they need a train in the zone?" And the guy goes, "Oh, the train won't go past the guard station." So it's not necessarily about the guards, but it kind of implies that the train won't go into the zone. It's not going to go past the guard station.
Interesting.
That whole sequence really shows that, like, Tarkovsky's like, I could do, like, a suspense little action beat thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to.
He doesn't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good part of the movie, and it helps kind of separate everything of the movie. It's like this little action beat kind of... It helps exemplify the like highs and lows of the other movie. Like this is the highest point of the action, And it's like that so that we can have even lower parts of inaction, of just experiencing what's happening around us. This little, little chase, little, here and there of escaping, whatnot. It's like a, I don't know, like one of those like Italian chase movies. And
Italian Spider-Man.
Yeah, Italian Spider-Man is a masterpiece.
And just that helps make that like 4-minute long shot of them just on the trolley on the train tracks feel much more weighty.
And it's not even like the last time we get a shit ton of tension in the movie. When he's going through that tunnel near the end of the movie, it is so fucking tense, where they just send the writer ahead because the stalker's like, if you die, it's not me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I get so uncomfortable because I'm like, I've seen the movie before. Nothing's going to happen. But fucking it's going to come out the fucking corner because they all float down there.
Okay, that's one thing about the... God, I'm going to fucking mention the book again.
Book count, please?
Book count. Yeah, we actually... God, I don't even want to know how many times I've mentioned it by now. Okay, but say you are a Russian person who's read the book and is now seeing the movie, like in 1979 or whatever. You see that section of the movie, you're probably on edge because they're going through what they call like the meat grinder afterwards. And that's the thing I mentioned earlier that throws you 10 feet up in the air and rings you out like a towel in the book. Right. And so when like that whole sequence, like if you had read the book and you watched the movie for the first time, like that experience, oh man, like on the edge of your seat. This is like a suspense movie. If you were like in that framework, if you were a Russian citizen who had read the book and then watched the movie, this would be the worst suspense movie because you'd be watching it just waiting for somebody to die. You're like, okay, like where's the hell ooze? Like, where's the bug traps and all the shit from the book? You'd be like, bro, don't go that way. Like when the guy starts walking up to the house being like, fuck you guys, I'll find my own way or whatnot. You'd be like, he's gonna die. But like, because we have such a different framework for the movie, like we know nothing happens.
Well,
which kind of ruins that suspense.
Boo.
Yeah, but she doesn't have. I didn't mean to like interrupt like that, but like you didn't have that background of the book though.
No,
you had no idea.
I went completely blind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just we keep getting the threats of you can't step out of place, walk in his footsteps, all these things, but it's like we haven't really seen anything happen. So it's like.
So it didn't feel that weighty, right?
No, it's like if he walks into the house, he's probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So was there no point when they were in the zone where you felt like on edge?
Like they were in danger?
Not really. I mean, because we were in the zone for such a long time and it's like, okay, nothing's happening. Even though he keeps saying, this could happen to you, this could be deadly or fatal. Nothing's happening. Even the dog doesn't attack anybody. So it's just kind of like, okay, maybe he's just really overselling that the zone is dangerous.
Like the most dangerous things that ever happened in the zone is like the guy pulls out the gun.
Yeah.
The writer pulls out the gun and the bomb. And the bomb.
I like how the writer pulls out the gun and the stalker's like, don't use the gun. He's like, I guess I won't use this gun.
And he just puts the gun away.
Yeah.
I'm like, fucking Chekhov's gun was on screen for 3 seconds and it didn't get fired.
I do love the fact that the stalker like pushes the gun into the water. That's pretty sweet.
It's a great shot. It's a great... Again, there's so many just great shots.
He is, like, so afraid of it.
Yeah.
The stalker is so afraid of the zone, and the movie, in a weird way, never explains why he's so afraid of the zone.
He just says it's dangerous. Everything's implied. I mean, it really is in the headspace, that mindset of you read this wildly popular, pulpy sci-fi novel and then watched the movie back in, like, the 70s.
And it's interesting that Tarkovsky decided to adapt it at all, because I think even he said, the only thing similar about my movie and the book is there is a stalker and there is a zone. And it pretty much ends there.
Yeah, pretty much. They're very, very different.
And I'm wondering why he would... Was the concept of the zone and the stalker so good, he was like, I gotta use it. I'll pay whatever royalty rights it is to make it.
Oh, there probably wasn't any.
The state made him do it.
The writers were probably like, freaking hell yeah, Andrei Tarkovsky is gonna make a movie out of my book. Let's go. And they were busy trying to get the thing published in an anthology by the Russian government, which was a whole nother thing.
Oh, there's a thing.
Oh well, we don't have to go on this for too long, but basically they wrote like a trilogy of books of these like sci-fi novels. Two brothers wrote Roadside Picnic. They wrote like an anthology or like these 3 novels. They got them like published in like these sci-fi magazines and different stuff like that. Like that's how Roadside Picnic came out originally. And then they wanted to like have like a wider release by the Russian government through like one of their programs. And basically the book got completely butchered.
Oh.
In many ways, to the point in which they, well, what's the term in like filmmaking where you don't put your name on the film?
They gave it an Alan Smithy?
Yeah, they gave it an Alan Smithy.
Were they like, this is not communist enough? Or they were like, this is too communist?
Not communist enough. And then the writers had to argue that parts of it were, that the government was saying wasn't communist enough, were communist enough. And it was just, I don't even, also, weirdly enough, one of the writers is still alive. One of the brothers.
Fucking
Wow.
what?
Yes, is still alive.
I wonder what he thinks of the movie.
Well, he said the movie was amazing. In like the stuff I read or whatever, he said, or the brothers thought the movie was like our just tour de force, the great Tarkovsky. They spoke very highly of Tarkovsky.
Fucking go Tarkovsky. All right. Fucking.
Even though I'm sure Tarkovsky is, Tarkovsky said himself, it fucking has almost nothing to do with the book.
I'm just saying those brothers, better taste than Stephen King. Stephen King hated The Shining.
Really? Well, okay,
Yeah.
but the thing is that
The Shining has a plot.
The Shining, yeah. Well, I was about to say The Shining is less like the book than Stalker is like Roadside Picnic, but not really. No,
the movie's actually like pretty close to the book. Honestly, tone is what the major difference is between it. But that's for Kubrick, man. Later down the line.
Later.
Far later.
Way later.
Way
down
later.
The line.
way later.
But he's like, never.
She just knows we don't have the time nor money to rent this studio out long enough to do a full Kubrick month.
Holy shit, no.
He wants to do a Kubrick year.
One, because he did like 13 movies, right? But we don't have to talk about Fear and Desire.
Why
not? Mostly because it's technically he tried to burn every print of the film and he disowned it. But, whatever.
And he failed to do it? Failure.
I know, right? Fucking Kubrick, what a hack. He couldn't even burn his own movies. But there's 12 movies, the one a month for the whole year. We could do it. We can do it, damn it.
Who's this we?
I know.
God damn it. But yeah, so I have the last question here, and I think I already figured out the answer.
Oh, of course.
Is Stalker accessible to a new audience? Could you suggest this to somebody? What is the person you could suggest this to if you can't suggest it to everyone?
I mean, I think it just really boils down to, can you watch a movie that's visually interesting all the way through? A 2.5 hour visually interesting movie in which the rest of it might be slightly less than relevant. If you can be like, yeah, sure, I could do that as long as it looks cool or whatever. Yeah, sure, I could look through a photo album and be like, wow, that looks nice. You can watch this movie, sure, go ahead.
This movie that's a philosophy textbook, and you're like, yeah, it looks pretty.
It's really hard to talk about movies that look pretty, that look good on this podcast. It's just like, when me and Dean did Sunrise. It's just such a visual experience. How the fuck am I supposed to talk about it? Am I supposed to describe the shot composition to you? Like,
I remember for that we just said, so everyone watch the movie. Okay, there's a link.
But Sunrise is a little different. Sunrise, I think, is like, the best movie ever made. So I can recommend it to just about anybody. Go ahead and watch the movie. It's great. Stalker, on the other hand, is just like, well, if it requires some
caveat
qualifiers. If you can sit for 2.5 hours and just watch images without much else, like, that's a good starting point to be like, oh, you'll like this movie, you'll want to watch it.
What about you, Miss Boo?
I think this is probably for like film connoisseurs. This is something that someone wants to sit there and, like you said, pull out the notepad, take some notes, really dive in, cut in through the meat and potatoes of this movie to what this actually means. I don't know how soon I'll watch it again, but I mean, there was a lot in a movie with little dialogue. There was a lot to digest and really try to figure out what's happening in this world.
It kind of made it hard to digest in that way. You're just gorged on one brick of dialogue, and you're not done digesting by the time the next brick of dialogue comes around.
And it doesn't help that Andrei Tarkovsky was a fucking poet before he was a filmmaker,
no.
and it's like, guy, can you... We get it, big words. Big Russian words, please. My small American brain cannot understand.
That's literally how I felt when I was watching it last night. Because I was tired. Like, it was hard for me to, like, really process, like, the dialogue. It was just going straight through one ear and out the other. I was like, oh my god, I feel stupid.
That is the power of this movie. It can make you feel like a total dumbass if you're not ready for it.
The themes are, like, so very heavy-handed. I still felt like a dumbass watching it.
Same.
Randy's like, I totally get what this... it's a thing where I feel like I get what the movie's about, and then if I watch it again tonight, I'd be like, fuck, I missed like 40 different things. Like, this like 3 seconds over here, that changed the whole movie.
That's why it's a perfect movie for the film nerd to watch over and over again, and study and digest it, and really, like...
Pick up something brand new every time.
Yeah, really tear through the movie, find every little nook and cranny of information they can get from it. Video Essayist's best movie.
Yes. I mean, I'm agreeing with Becky right here. This is a film nerd movie.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to your foreign film month, right? You got to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, probably foreign film month is going to be full of these. What else we got in foreign film month?
Well,
this full of film nerd movies.
Well, this is technically the last
episode. Yeah.
But yeah, because we had to film these out of order.
It's all right.
Let's see.
But we do have the docket.
We do. Yeah. So this month is curated by Dean, so it's going to have movies like Grand Illusion, Tokyo Story, Suspiria, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So there's a good mixture.
Those all sound like just film nerd movies.
I'm excited
they kind of
are. Caligari.
Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
Yeah.
Like, Dean, I'm surprised you didn't put fucking Seven Samurai in here.
Seven Samurai just won the IMDb Film General foreign film poll or whatever, where it was like it beat out like 400 other movies and is now voted the #1 greatest foreign film of all time. So I might change out Tokyo Story from Seven Samurai, but it is.
Wait, why Tokyo Story of all the? Oh no,
because it represents Japanese cinema.
Well, here's the thing though. I wasn't thinking about Tokyo Story. I was thinking about In the Mood for Love. I was getting them too mixed up in my brain.
Totally different
countries. Also totally different movies. Probably switch out Tokyo Story. That movie's depressing as far as I know.
Also, the premise of the month, not only, we haven't done foreign films on the podcast before, but it's also Dean's 101 into foreign films. So, this is for the audience that maybe hasn't really, dipped a toe into that water yet, and maybe they want to.
Definitely switch out
Seven
Tokyo
Samurai
Story
probably
for Seven Samurai. Tokyo Story is just heart-wrenchingly depressing, and only in a way only Japanese media can be.
Randy's like, Japanese media hit you right in the fucking soul.
Well,
not the heart, the soul.
Just the like heart-wrenching, just complete bleakness. Well, as far as I understand of Tokyo Story, I've never seen it, but I have an idea about like different Japanese mediums. I've read a lot of Japanese novels recently, and everybody's seen some anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really know how to get there, right in the feels.
Studio Ghibli gets me every time.
The only reason I mean we're probably gonna have to switch it up to Seven Samurai because like fucking you have to talk about Kurosawa.
Mm-hmm.
But
so
the
should
reason
I change it now?
I would, but
live on air,
on air,
changing the month.
But the reason I didn't put it is so Seven Samurai I think is longer than Once Upon a Time in America.
Oh, my
what the fuck?
God.
Really?
I think so. It's over 4 hours and it has an intermission.
What the
or
fuck?
it's I think it's almost or it is like 10 minutes over 4 hours.
I was totally convinced that all the Kurosawa movies were like 2 hour long bangers.
No, it's a 4 or 5 hour long banger, and it is awesome. It is so fucking awesome.
I just curated and gave you a nice month of movies about movies, and you're gonna do this to me?
Oh yeah, Dean's gonna.
I'm going hard,
man
damn
an inch. He's taking a mile.
Oh my god.
You're gonna enjoy it, I swear to God. Though it's not like slow. It's a fucking action movie. Like the Expendables are like we're just stealing Seven Samurai. Magnificent Seven is literally stealing from Magnificent Seven Samurai. Mm-hmm. It's fucking great. I swear. You're gonna fall in love with Toshiro Mifune, and he will be your new idealistic male for this. I swear. But yeah, so Stalker. We're talking. It's good shit. It's a good movie. Sight and sound. they also think it's a good movie, and this will be the last one, because we were saying it might not be so accessible to everyone. They agreed. So, on the 2012 list, it was number 29. On the 2022, it's now 43. It's going to go off the list eventually.
I don't know if it'll go off the BFI list just because it's such a film nerd's movie. And, like, it's really well shot. I mean, just incredibly well shot. Not just talking about what's on screen, but, like, how they set it up.
Yeah.
You know, the dollying over water. Like, I don't see that in, like, almost any movie. And that shit is crazy good in this movie.
Randy's like, can't we just have a dolly shot over water for every film? Can
Not
I get that
every
shit
film,
in Expendables?
but like in some other movies, like, you know, come on now.
Yeah.
Can we just like fill like more movies up with like ankle deep water?
We like water.
It's a good trope to have in your movies, or a good theme to have in your movies.
I feel, you know, Ben-Hur could have done with some of that, you know, just some dolly shots over that. It would have won its 12th Oscar if it did.
Yeah, big true.
Could have done it.
I mean, Lord of the Rings did do some of that with the swamps.
They did. Peter Jackson, he's definitely seen Stalker.
At least once.
But yeah, so big fan. I was 2 thumbs up for Stalker for me. I really do like this movie.
I'm waffling. Before, I was like, oh yeah, Stalker, amazing movie, love it.
You put it on your like favorites or best list thing when you did that.
I did, and now I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, it's still probably like best movies I've seen. Yeah, maybe top 10 or something like that. But like on my favorites movie, it's probably getting knocked down a little bit. I blame the book.
Where you're just like, the book's too good. It's too pulpy.
The book is like, it's so different, and it's more of what I wanted from the movie. Like, I read the book and I'm just like, yeah, I'd rather have this. Even though, you know, because Tarkovsky made Stalker, and it is such like a monument of filmmaking, you know, nobody's ever going to remake it into what more like the book. So yeah, it's kind of what I have to just deal.
I've thought about that. Like, could have made a great miniseries if HBO like ever got like this hair up their ass. We're gonna make a Stalker miniseries. This would be kind of fire if they just adapted the book.
Oh God, yes.
Or like closer to that.
Yes, but
Yeah.
I mean that's just me though.
So
not a Netflix adaptation though.
Oh fuck
No.
God, no.
Netflix is dead to me. Oh no, I'm just gonna leave it like that. Fuck Netflix.
Yeah, just leave it on Netflix is dead to me and just end the podcast right there.
We won't do that because what are we doing next week?
Dean doesn't
I forgot what we're doing.
Okay,
You forgot
what
the
are
whole
we
spiel.
doing the week after the release of this podcast?
Yes.
Yes,
Let's do that.
Next week, new month, new theme. And it's a theme that's not completely foreign to the podcast because we're talking about a movie we've already talked about before. It's our highest listened to episode on YouTube. I think we hit 41,000 or 42,000 on this episode.
I think it might be even over that now.
Because next week, we're going back
to
Hominoptera. We're talking about The Mummy.
I'm okay with that. That was good. That was good shit. Take it back to the booth. But yeah, we're talking about Brendan Fraser, Mummy. Steven Sommers directed it, I believe.
I believe so. Rachel Weisz.
Yeah, you've got some time under your belt. You'll be able to talk about the movie a little bit more fluidly.
A little
bit, yeah. We're going to have some guests on that episode. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the Mummy franchise. We're going back to Hominoptera. We're going to talk about the Mummy franchise. I am so excited.
I'm very excited. I've been waiting for this shit.
Me too. We're going to have some guests throughout the month of The Mummy, but if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube, where eventually Dean will remember to upload video versions of this podcast. My lovely slideshows. You can go there, like, comment, subscribe, and you can follow us on our socials at
The Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and random adventures we go on.
And Randy, would you like to plug anything before we go? What YouTube or Twitch are you watching?
Arteezy is streaming Dota 2 recently. I hope he's still streaming by the time this podcast comes out.
Are you gonna be so happy if Arteezy hits you up and be like, yo dude, thanks for the shout out?
Thanks for the shout out? Hell yeah, dude.
That would be the dream.
Yeah, dude. My boy RTC TI5.
I'm just saying, Randy, you've won as many TIs as Arteezy.
Yeah, me and Arteezy are just as good as Dota 2. We've won the same amount of TIs.
But with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.
Bye-bye.